joining us right now is someone else who knows a little bit about Virginia politics, the former governor of the Commonwealth, Jim Gilmore. Governor Gilmore, good to be here.
Good to have
you here.
How are you? Great,
thank you.
You got a great crowd here today.
Yeah, well, they heard you were going to be here.
Exciting, yeah.
And Bill Hess. Governor Gilmore, I got to have you comment on this decision that came down this week about the districting, the redistricting, and how the way the districts are gerrymandered and drawn in the Commonwealth of Virginia. They said that they were done this way to pack in the minority vote in certain districts. And I'd love for you to weigh in on it because you know this pretty well.
Well, I think the first thing to tell your listeners is that it happened. It's an amazing court decision. Almost nobody said anything about it, but it upsets the congressional district lines starting next year. Now, everybody's going to run this year. Barbara Comstock's going to win up here, of course, as we all know, and Micah Edmond and Suzanne Schulte is going to win. But these districts are all going to change again next year, and that is an amazing thing. You may have to have a special election, but look, Larry, what you're really asking is, yeah, in the redistricting, they packed African Americans into one place. And the argument is that that's just not fair. That dilutes their ability to influence other seats, and I think that's true.
But Governor Gilmore, I mean, it depends on the perspective because you look at other states that have a predominantly Democratic governorship and also a state legislature, California, New York. They do that same kind of gerrymandering, and it's to ensure that they have a minority district. So who's looking at these things? Who makes the decision?
Well, actually, I was the Attorney General of the state also, and we looked at these things, and actually the law commanded that you put these people.
To make sure they had equal representation.
Just to make sure there was an African American person who got elected. So that was the way that the law was then. But I think things are changing now, and there's a sense we have an African American president. White people voted for the president of the United States. So I think there's a sense right now that we can move people around a little bit more and increase their influence in more places, and I think that's okay.
Listen, we are just weeks away from the midterm elections, and for Republicans, there is nothing more important, perhaps, than the battle for the Senate. A lot of people are watching very closely races all over the country. Not only you're a former governor, former attorney general, you're a former chairman of the Republican Party. So use that Republican political acumen to tell me, is there a Republican wave building, and how do you think the chances are for taking over the Senate in the midterm elections?
Well, first of all, I'm supporting Ed Gillespie, of course, and in fact, I'm going to campaign for him. I am campaigning for him, and I believe he'll do a good job.
But beyond Virginia?
Well, beyond Virginia, look, the direct answer is I expect the Republicans to take the United States Senate this year. I think that's going to happen. And you can look at it and see there is a wave building. This year there's a sense that there's time for a change. People are uncomfortable with our international relations and national security. They're uncomfortable with the fact that we have not recovered from the recession. People are not working adequately. Too many people who want full-time jobs are working part-time. Young people are not getting jobs, and there's a sense that there's a time for a change, and I think you're seeing it nationwide. You can count the numbers, Brian. You can look at what's going on across the country, and I think that the Republicans are going to win enough seats to take the majority.
And traditionally, if there are undecided voters, they traditionally go against the incumbent in an election like this?
Well, yes. If you've been an incumbent for a while, people know who you are, theoretically, and they know your name, although I think Senator Warner's been so, uninvolved, frankly, that a lot of people really don't know. But I think that if you're not already committed to him, you're probably not going to be in the end.
Yeah, but based on what you just said, though, Governor Gilmore, about all of the reasons why you believe this could very well be a Republican wave, I got to ask, here we are in Virginia, up until recently a pretty solid Republican state. It's now genuinely purple, if not blue. I mean, let's face it, every statewide office is held by a Democrat now. Why is Mark Warner up by 10 points in the latest poll? Why isn't Ed Gillespie neck and neck with the senator?
Because he is a new candidate, because he has not run before, and it takes him some time to get his name identification out there. But, to come directly to this, it's very key for Republicans to run on a positive message. We have to actually explain what we're going to do when we get into the majority in the Senate and explain how we're going to make life better, not just for one group of people, but for all people.
Looking at, you were the governor through 2002. Looking at where this state has gone since 2002 in just a dozen years, what has gone wrong for the Republicans in the Commonwealth? Or how did they get here, I should say?
The big picture answer is, in my view, we have not run on a positive message in the last 10 years. We just have not. And yet we've got positive messages. things are not great out there right now, and the international danger is very severe. And people who live in this community here in Northern Virginia would know that. They're more tied in and aware of the international implications of what's going on than most voters.
Well, how much of it has to do, though, with this small group of people who vote for independent candidates, either libertarian or independent candidates? That becomes a spoiler for Republicans and splits the vote, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. If we're in a system here in this country that is not a parliamentary system, you don't have things split that way. And if libertarian-type voters take away from the Republican candidate, yeah, that elects the Democrat again. And sometimes you wonder whether it's just deliberate, you know.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think sometimes that these campaigns are sort of secretly or supported by the Democratic candidates, knowing that it's easy to split the Republican vote?
Well, I don't have any evidence, but I wouldn't be surprised. That's exactly, you put in a libertarian
passively
type of
encouraged,
okay.
perhaps.
Well, they
maybe more so.
Maybe for funding, but they still got to get people to vote. And the fact is, there is a message out there. There is a belief held by a whole lot of voters in a place like Virginia and other states where they feel very disaffected by the leadership of the Republican Party. It doesn't matter whether those candidates are funded by the Democrats, and they could very well be. People are positively voting for an independent or a libertarian because they feel the Republican Party left them. How can the Republican Party fix that?
By standing for strong principles and strong ideas and putting their ideas out there vigorously. I had a guy here in this room tell me the very same thing this morning, that the Republicans don't stand strong enough for the right thing.
Right.
Do you remember, Brian, when I ran on cutting the car tax in this state?
I do remember.
You remember that? Did you all happy that I cut the car tax in this state? Because I ran on something positive to help people.
We got about 30 seconds left, so I want to ask you about if it's a strong message that Republicans need, where should Republicans be on the same-sex marriage issue? Because it's very much in discussion right now.
Yeah, and I know. And I think that you simply have to stand for, every individual Republican has to stand for what they believe in. I have my own views. I believe in that marriage ought to be between a man and a woman. But you know what? A lot of other people don't agree with me, and it's not the world that I live in. I think that the change is here.
All right.
Governor Jim Gilmore, thank you so much for coming out today. It's great to see you, and it's always good to have you on WMAL.
Thank you, Larry.
It is 7:50.